很多语言学习习惯来自学生的时期，但是当了大人之后，使用语言的方式却改变了很多。所以我们该如何改掉旧的习惯，来建立新的语言学习习惯呢？ Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享，职场英语的技能，跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everyone, welcome back to Executive Plus Podcast episode 48. This week has been all about habits. In our previous episode, we talked about how do you form new habits for either language learning or career development. This episode, we're going to turn it around and talk about how do you drop bad habits. Now, for language learners or anyone who's trying to improve their career, your bad habits are just as likely to hold you back. And as children, we often learn certain ways of learning a language, which are not always applicable to being an adult. So, how do you drop those habits and develop the new ones?
没错，有很多学习的习惯，当然都是在我们当学生时期的时候养成的嘛。所以大家都知道，我们考了很多试，我们也有以成绩来代表我们的学习的程度。那这些都在我们在成人在职场上是没有任何用处的。所以当我们要改掉这些习惯、这些想法，然后去建立新的习惯的时候，是需要一些技巧的。所以今天我们就来分享，我们也是同样这本书 Atomic Habit 里面建议大家的也是4个法则，要如何改掉坏习惯。
So, in the book Atomic Habits, he set out 4 laws for creating a good habit, which we discussed in the last episodes. Those would be make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. The ways of breaking habits is just to do the opposite, to make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, or make it unsatisfying. So let's look at the first one. If we're trying to break a bad habit, how do we make it invisible?
所以在这个部分，我们要改掉坏习惯的第一个法则，就是 make it invisible。何谓 invisible 呢？也就是我们要把我们这个影响我们习惯的这个提示，要把它移走。When it comes to language learning， 所以很简单的，我们在学习语言的时候，我们大家最习惯，当我们看到一个我们不确定的字，我们第一个都会做什么呢？ Google Translate, right?Yeah,
a lot of people, since they were young, automatically went to some kind of translation source. Now, before smartphones are prominent, people have electronic dictionaries or physical dictionaries, up until the point now where you don't know something, just boom, Google Translate it. But we always want to remove the cue or remove the ability for us to do this very easily. So making it invisible may be as simple as deleting Google Translate from your phone or locking out that so that your habit is not to automatically jump in and start translating things. This is applicable to a lot of things. Again, part of the goal of making it visible is removing that cue. Sometimes you'll hear people who have like cell phone addictions that they always have an excuse that, oh, my cell phone's my alarm clock, so it needs to be by my bedside, but that means the moment I wake up, the first thing I do is I pick up my phone and start doing something on the internet. So the make it invisible may be something as simple as buy an alarm clock and put your phone in the living room when you go to bed. So when you wake up, that's not an option. And it's the same idea when you're language learning. If you find you have some kind of crutch or some kind of thing that you're constantly leaning on that's stopping you from fully absorbing the language, just remove that from your sight or remove your ability to access it.
所以很简单的，你就是将这种一些可能平常太习惯用的这些工具，可能是 App 还是 Translation 的这些工具，就直接将从你的 Smartphone 移走，或者从你的 Desktop 移走，这样能够让你养成一种习惯，是你真的要去了解，比如说这一句话，或者是这个 situation 的 context。你从这个 context 再去猜测这个字的意思，你从这种方式，你反而学到这个字是比较更深层的，而且 these words will actually be yours.
So let's look at the second law of breaking a bad habit, to make it unattractive. This would be the opposite of making it attractive, where we talked about incentivizing yourself to do that. Now, on the surface, this sounds pretty simple. You should find a way to de-incentivize yourself or maybe punish yourself. But in the book, he discusses to make something unattractive is more along the line to separate what makes you feel comfortable or makes you feel good from the actual result. What this may become is a lot of people feel very uncomfortable when speaking English. So they spend a lot of time just translating things in their head, and they don't feel comfortable that if I don't translate my thought from the Chinese to the English, it may not come out right. But what usually happens is the more you translate things in your head, the less sure you feel about your translation, or the weirder you feel your translation is, so it creates an amount of anxiety. And so removing the idea that translating from Chinese to English will make your sentence better helps people remove the attraction of translation.
那有很多人在需要讲第二语言的时候，他们有一种不确定性，因为当你有点不确定你的，比如说你文法对不对，或你讲字对不对的时候，他们就会很直接的跳进这种我必须一定要先把中文的内容准备好，在我脑海里面再去 translate 到英文，这样子他们才觉得比较 comfortable。但是其实我们会发现，当我们在做这种 translation 的时候，你到了后来你也会发现你变得是你更不确定你的这些翻译出来的这些 outcome， 因为它其实是 it's translated， 所以有很多字你更不能确定说这样文法对不对啊，会不会是有点中翻英啊，反而会让我们更紧张更焦虑。
Right. And you'll see this a lot in presentation, where someone will go, I need to develop the whole Chinese presentation first. Then I'll translate it into English, and then it will make sense. But oftentimes this creates more anxiety because you're like, okay, I need more time because I have to create two versions. And then after I make my English version, I'll usually look at it and feel the logic or the grammar or something is right. And it creates more anxiety. And so the idea of making it unattractive is to remove your comfort of translation from the project and just go straight into developing the English version by itself.
所以这个很多其实是本身的心态的问题。你自己如果感受到我一定要透过中文才能够确定这个英文它的这个确定准确度的话，那你必须要把这种感觉把它做一些 reframing。所谓 reframing 就是说，比如说好了，有的时候你看到你的外国的老板要跟你开会了，你应该心中有时候会 always 讲说I have to speak English later， 但是你的 reframing 你就可以讲说I get to practice English， right？ 一个是很负面的变成一个很正面的，或者你可以说I have to speak a foreign language now， 这种让你真的很 anxious， 但是 instead you could say I get to enhance my communication skills, right? You go from something that's very negative to something that's absolutely very helpful and add value to your life.
Right. And this reframing becomes really powerful. I remember a story of we were working with a company who was about to present to their American partner. And one of the mid-level managers who had never hosted or been the head of one of these meetings suddenly volunteered to become the head. And even the CEO was very surprised. He was happy, but he was very surprised. And he asked her, why did you want to do this? And she was like, it scares me to do it. But I thought that I have the ability to lead a team very easily in Chinese. And so when hosting this kind of meeting or showing my leadership skills, this was an opportunity for me to prove that I have that skill. It's that I can lead a meeting or I can lead a project. So she simply reframed it from, oh my God, how do I host a meeting in English to, I have this skill and I'm going to prove it in a second language.
那相同的我发现其实我相信每一个人你应该都在你的工作中生活中都会有一个人让你特别不想去面对，他可能是你觉得沟通上特别困难的人，或者是有可能是老板或者是同事，不管是怎么样 situation， 你会发现 OK the first law doesn't really work 因为你没有办法把这个人变成 invisible you can't take this person away from your life because if it's a boss you're going to have to deal with him or her.
Right.
If it's your colleague, you're going to have to work with him or work with her, right? So 第二个法则也就是 make it unattractive 这个部分它其实 it works here 因为你就可以去想一下这个时候你就必须要有一种 reframing, right? Reframing perspective. 所以 instead of saying, oh, I have to talk to this guy again, 你可以说 oh, I get to practice my negotiation skill.
Right. Or it's one of those things like, if I can learn how to communicate with this person, I will be able to communicate with literally anyone. And you're just reframing the anxiety of, I don't want to talk to this person to, wow, I have an opportunity to become the best version of myself.
All right. So let's get to the third law, which is make it difficult.
So in our previous episode, we talked make it easy is make something accessible. You want to create a habit, make sure that it's at hand whenever you want. Now, the reverse of that is just make it difficult. Few examples that make it difficult is there's a lot of apps now to help you with productivity and focus, which means that if I say that I'm going to sit down and focus on language learning or I'm going to take this online class, it will lock your computer to where you cannot change the screen for a certain amount of time that you designate. So that thing that stops you from changing your focus, picking up your phone, etc., adds a level of difficulty or adds a level of complexity to switch your focus.
因为有很多人，其实我也是，当想要做一件不想做的事情，比如说你必须要写一份报告，或者是你就是必须要看这个 PowerPoint slides， 你就会觉得说我休息一下好了，休息一下就变成 Facebook, now there's Clubhouse, there's IG， 有非常多的 distraction， 那这些 distraction 就变成你一种好像有一种 getaway, right? 所以或许在书中它就有一个 example， 就是如果你 if you're a boy, then ask your girlfriend， 请你的 girlfriend将你所有 social media 都 reset the password 去重新建立那个password， 然后呢在你完成工作之前都不能跟你讲这个 password 是什么。 This is a perfect way, to be honest.
Yeah, for anyone. I don't know if you have to change every app's password, but at least like your phone password or your computer password, just so that you can really sit down and get that thing done. Because oftentimes we find that we drag something out. Like, it should actually only take me 30 minutes to finish this project, but it'll act, maybe a whole half day is lost because I'm like, oh, write a sentence, check Instagram, write a sentence, oh, what's this message that popped out? Or building your work times around certain times of day. Like, I can only check messages between 11 and 12, or I can only do these things at certain times so that I'm carving out that focus time.
So now the last law, which is make it unsatisfying. 那我们在之前的 make a good habit, make it satisfying 的部分，我们就有讲到说，你可以透过很多的habit tracking 的一些系统让你能够看得到你的成果。那在这个部分 make it unsatisfying， 在书中的作者他就有提到说，你可以有个叫做 habit contract. So, for example, 如果你想要 work out, 你想要 lose that 20 kg 好了，你要减重，我们不用讲那么 drastic, maybe
Yes,
5 5公斤，好5公斤，那你就可以跟你的 personal trainer 还有你的男朋友或女朋友或者老公老婆做一个 contract。OK， 那他们都必须要签名哦。然后呢，你的 contract 中你就可以讲说，如果我没有准时的到健身房报告，我就要给我老婆500块。Okay, then she can do whatever she wants with that $500.
You'll see this in both long-term and short-term. So what Sherry just described is maybe like over that 3 months, I need to hit this goal. Yeah. But you'll actually see in some places, for example, Toastmasters, they'll have a contract where if you're trying to fix certain verbal habits, like using too much or saying a word too often, that they'll charge you. So it's every time I say it's $10 or $5 into a coin jar. And this really helps enforce that this is not a very enjoyable thing to do.
Right. So make it hurt, basically.
Yes. All right. So we hope that you go back and you look at the habits, the language learning, or the professional development habits you have. If you want to develop new ones, check out our last episode. If you want to break the old ones to make room for these new ones, think about what are the 4 ways that you can break these bad habits.
也希望大家建立了新的好的习惯，改掉了不想要的坏习惯。
All right. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱yourcareerplus@gmail.com。